Well, shortly after I hit 100K earned on Upwork, Tyler just hit 200K earned on Upwork. Tyler, how does it feel to hit such a big milestone?
It feels pretty awesome. I was stuck at 190,000 earned for a long time. There was kind of a dip in activity on Upwork, and it was a combination of me getting so busy with non-Upwork client work that I didn't really have time to really try and go after that last $10,000. But I had one big project come in, and it was just enough to get over the $200,000 mark. And man, that is a cool number to have on your Upwork page. It's something that you don't see very often on other freelancers' pages. So it's been a long journey to get from 100K to 200K, but it feels so damn good to cross that mark.
Yeah, congratulations. What a huge milestone. I wish we had numbers on like the percentage of freelancers on Upwork that actually hit the 200K threshold. We'll have to look into that later, but I know we have a lot of school members who are in the 100K club, so we have the next milestone to keep striving for that next big win. Well, let's talk about like what do you think really contributed to you being able to hit that 200K? Like what comes to mind for you?
Man, yeah, there's so much to cover when I think about how I got to this point. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think about how I got here is the lack of pressure is really the key for me. The lack of forcing myself to work with clients just because maybe they reach out or just because I get inquiries doesn't mean I feel that pressure to take on everything that comes through Upwork. And I think the key to success on Upwork is being picky. And we talk about this a lot, but the more you earn on Upwork, the more reviews you earn, the pickier you should get when it comes to long-term freelancing on Upwork. So that's been something that I've held true this entire journey is I am insanely picky with who I take on and who I decide to work with on Upwork. And a key to that part is I really think that it's important for freelancers to have a source of leads coming in that is outside of Upwork. It's kind of ironic, but the more work that you can secure off of Upwork, the more success you're going to have on Upwork. And it all comes back to not being desperate, not feeling like you have to be taking on insane amounts of work on Upwork. Because when I think about Upwork projects, in terms of difficulty and stress level, it's, 9, it's 10 out of 10. These are projects that are going to live on your page forever. And so when you do decide to work with an Upwork client, you better be locked in and you better have enough bandwidth to give it 110% because these projects are on another tier level when you compare them to off Upwork projects. And so that's why I think it's important for freelancers to have leverage, to have a source of leads coming in so that you never feel pressured to work with the wrong client. You never feel like you got to get an Upwork project this week or next week. You feel like you can wait for the right opportunities to come in and work with the clients that treat you right, respect you, and see you as the expert. And it's funny, the lower the price of the client, the lower the budget of the client, the higher the stress level and the higher the demands usually is the case. And so when I work with an Upwork client, I try to make sure that this is a high value client. This is a client who is going to pay me what I'm worth. And usually that means they're going to be a lot easier to work with because they're going to let me be the expert and they're already sold on me before they hire me.
So you mentioned something really important, the concept of leverage. And I think the way that you live your life is all about leverage. It's how you leverage your time. It's how you leverage projects. It's how you leverage your finances. The game of life is just a game of leverage. And so I think that's so important for freelancers to understand. Like both you and I, we have maybe a handful of clients on Upwork, but the majority of our clients found us outside of Upwork. Just want to be super clear. They found us on social media or LinkedIn or referral or, word of mouth. But it's being able to feel really confident in your finances. So you're making money projects are going well, clients are really, really happy, and then you can decide and pick and choose the projects that you want to actually work on Upwork, because there's no stress-free project on Upwork. And you and I have both been on the platforms for so long. That is something I think that gets more and more important as time goes on, is just being able to pick and choose and to vet them and to spot those red flags, even those beige flags. So I think that's going to become even more important as you strive for 300K, is just figuring out how to filter out those low value clients and continue to work with the clients that you really want to work with. So let's talk about the timeline here. As you look back from your journey from 100K to 200K, is there anything that you would have done differently to hit 200K faster?
Yeah, I mean, it did take me a decent amount of time, probably a couple years, maybe 2.5 to go from 100 to 200. I think what happens when you start getting success as a freelancer is that more and more leads obviously start coming in, and you have to start being very deliberate with the opportunities that you want to take on. You need to start maybe even triaging opportunities to other freelancers that maybe are one tier below you, or maybe you start getting double booked. And in the last couple years, I have just been so inundated with opportunities that I actually haven't had a whole lot of time to do any sort of prospecting on Upwork. So Upwork was kind of that third platform, or that third place where leads would come in, and yeah, there'd be a constant source of leads from Upwork as well. But it was kind of like that, because I always know, like I'm saying, like Upwork projects are a tier above when it comes to stress level and just difficulty and like focus level. So that's kind of why I always put them sort of below the non Upwork opportunities. But so when the non Upwork opportunities kind of slow down, that's when I actually start taking on more Upwork projects. So if I was to think about how I could have sped up that process and earned more on Upwork in a faster way, I probably could have spent more time prospecting on Upwork, but I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I have a big enough referral pool. I have a big enough client base where, maybe an old client would resurface when my current clients slow down. So I just kind of had a constant source of projects, and Upwork was sort of a little bit on the back burner during this phase. So I could have sped it up, but again, it's stressful, and it can be stressful even when you are a top tier freelancer on there. So I kind of save Upwork for when I'm either slow off of Upwork, or when it's a really amazing opportunity.
One of the many reasons that we've had so much success on Upwork, I mean, both of us are expert vetted. I'm at 100K earned, you're at 200K earned, is the way that we view Upwork. We have a different mindset when it comes to the platform. We're playing the long game. And one thing to take into consideration is the fees. So when you are working on projects through Upwork, there are fees. So talk to me a little bit about how you're viewing the fee structure on Upwork.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big part of my ability to have longevity on Upwork. Is from the very beginning, even before I had earned a single dollar on Upwork, I knew that the cost that comes with getting paid on Upwork, the 10% fee, the 15% fees that come out of the total project price, I knew from the very start that that was a fair transaction. Now, that might ruffle a lot of feathers out there, but I was in video production. Yeah, I've been in video production basically my entire career. And from the very beginning, I knew about this thing called a finder's fee, right? This is what you pay someone that refers work to you. You pay them a percentage of the project price. So it was something that I was used to doing. I always thought it was a fair thing, because if that referral hadn't come in, then that project wouldn't have come in, and you would have had $0 earned. So from the very start, I knew that taking a percentage of what I earn is a totally fair transaction. So from the very beginning, I paid that fee happily. Okay. If I had even if I wasn't charging a lot in the beginning for whatever I was doing, And it did, it does reduce the amount of profit that you take. I never got super annoyed about any of these fees because, again, without the fee, there would have been no profit at all. So I think that that is something that a lot of freelancers get caught up in is that, you talk to people about how much you're making on Upwork, and the first thing they go to is, yeah, but isn't the cost like pretty high? Like, aren't the fees pretty high? Okay, the fee is gonna feel higher if you're not charging enough. Let's start with that. If you're charging a lot more and your profit margin is higher, then your fees, the fees that Upwork charges you, aren't gonna be killing you because your profit margin is healthy. So maybe for a lot of you freelancers out there who are really upset over these fees, you need to charge more. You need to charge more because the more you charge, the less pain these fees will feel for you. And so, a lot of this comes back to people not charging enough. And we try to hammer that in a lot of our content that 90% of freelancers are simply not charging enough. We have a whole podcast on that. Check that one out. But, um, pretty early on, I always paid the fees happily, and I always tried to increase my rates over time so that the profit margin was healthy enough to where I wouldn't care too much about these fees.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to one of my girlfriends a couple years ago and I was telling her about this big Upwork project that I landed. And her first question was about the fees. And I'm just like, what does it matter? Like, I will happily pay that fee every single month or whatever, because without Upwork, I would have never ever have landed this caliber of client. So to me, it's just how you're investing your money. You think about it on Upwork, sure, you pay a fee, but you get to work with amazing, amazing, like top tier clients. That is 1000% worth it. So I think freelancers have to think about their business in a little bit more of a strategic way. And that's almost an employee 9 to 5 mindset of like kind of penny pinching in a way and saying like, oh, I don't know if it's worth it, this fee, this and that. Well, think about it as a business owner. You're investing in a platform. It's just a little bit of a mindset shift, but it can truly make all the difference. And again, it kind of goes back to this conversation of leverage, right? You would not be stressing out about these Upwork fees if you had a full roster of clients and you were able to bring in a decent amount of money. You wouldn't even think twice about a fee. So I think that's how every freelancer should view fees moving forward.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a conversation I just had with a buddy who has an Upwork profile. He was in discussions on Upwork with this client, and then eventually that client reached out to him directly, and he ended up just working with the client off of Upwork. And when we think about all these ghost postings that people complain about, the job posts where they get a bunch of proposals and then no one gets hired, I think what is happening is someone is actually getting hired. They're just not getting hired on Upwork. So a lot of times, Upwork cracks down on freelancers who try to contact these job posters off of Upwork. But a lot of times, the client themselves will reach out directly to the freelancer. And this is a pitfall. Just because you have some success on Upwork and maybe you start getting inquiries via Upwork, don't ever take the client off of Upwork. And the reason for this is because, yeah, you're going to save 10%, but you're also breaking Upwork's terms of service and you're risking yourself getting banned. But also, you're taking money that you could have added to your earnings on Upwork and you're just removing that altogether, and you're not going to get the review. I have never taken a client off of Upwork, and the reason for that is because I know I might not make as much profit, but all of these reviews, when I start stacking these reviews and my earnings starts getting higher and higher, I'm just going to be able to separate myself from all the other freelancers who took the shortcut and who took the short-sighted perspective of making a little more money now. But because I've held firm and I've had clients reach out and say, "Hey, do you want me to work with you off of the platform?" And I always say, "No, let's keep it on Upwork." Sometimes I'll say like, "Look, you don't even have to send me a 1099 because They don't because they're not technically hiring me as a contractor. So I try to, incentivize it that way. But the real incentive is that I'm stacking projects. I'm stacking high paid projects. I'm getting another more 5-star reviews and my earnings get higher. And it just separates me from everyone else who takes the shortcut, who, even if the client is offering that, it's not worth it. And that's how I was able to get all the way to 200K because I took the long game. I took the long game and I made sure to keep as much projects on Upwork as I could.
And we both recommend if you have a happy client that found you outside of Upwork, things are going great, and you want to increase your earnings. Maybe you want to get a couple projects or at least one project on your profile if you're just starting out, or maybe some reviews. Take a really, really happy client that found you off of Upwork, bring them onto Upwork. And that's a really easy way to get some initial momentum when it comes to your Upwork profile.
Yeah, and I think that Upwork offers a 0% fee on those new clients, right? So you're actually not going to earn any less on that project. The client may have to pay a processing fee, but you could just give them a very small discount. But yeah, I think there's a 0% fee offer for freelancers who bring clients onto the platform.
So, from your journey from 100K to 200K, would you say the majority are invite only opportunities? Like, did you submit any proposals to the job feed?
I really do think that once I hit 100K, I would say 95% of the jobs that I executed on Upwork were invite only projects that I won. So for you guys out there, I know it can be a grind when you're trying to get from 0 to 1,000, from 1,000 to 10,000, and then from 10,000 to 100,000. But let me tell you, when you get up into the 50Ks, 60Ks, 70Ks, you're going to have so much leverage that you don't have to spend as nearly as much time trolling the job feed, looking for opportunities, submitting proposals. You should start if your proposal is positioned well and you have, a great profile, you should be able to get a large amount of work just through invite only projects. And I think if you talk to a lot of the top rated plus freelancers, they'll tell you the same, that it becomes a game of responding to invites versus a game of let me send 10 proposals every day kind of thing. So I think the only money that I spend on connects nowadays is just to have my availability badge on. I may have a little bit of money going to the boosted profile, but it's not too much. So yeah, I'm not spending hardly anything on proposals themselves anymore, which is really nice. And I think that should just serve as an incentive that you can get to a point where you're not having to submit a massive amount of proposals or any proposals at all, at all at a certain point. And I could, again, if I wanted to make more on Upwork, I could, and I could go into the job feed. I'm sure there was opportunities in there, but I have enough projects off of Upwork now that I don't really need to do that anymore.
The best part of that is when a client sends you that direct invite, they're already pre sold on you. So it's so easy to close them. They already like your work. They've kind of already done that pre vetting work. And then it's just a matter of, hey, do we align? Is this a good fit? Does price make sense? And then boom, it's so easy to close those clients. I mean, whenever I get a direct invite, it's like a 90% close rate usually. And that's where you want to be as a freelancer. And to give all of you freelancers motivation too, like we have been helping our school members hit those big Upwork earning milestones. So if you are looking for some support there, we'll include a link in our description. You can check out our school page. So as we think about the next milestone to 300K, are you going to change up your strategy at all, or are you just going to stay the course?
I think as I move into this next journey to 300K, I would love in an ideal world, I would love to get that done in like 10 projects. That would be an ideal world where like I'm not so much worrying about volume of projects, but like high end, super high level, high quality projects. So upping the sort of the minimum price that I'm willing to work on a project. Cause again, I have worked so hard over so many years to get my profile to this point that I would love to be very even more deliberate with the projects that I take on and really work on higher ticket projects. So again, just continuing that pattern of less volume and higher project price, that's kind of what I want to continue doing.
Because at that point, the client is paying so much for your services, it shifts from just vendor transactional relationship into a true partnership. They're actually invested in you. They're invested in the work. I mean, that's been so true for my marketing clients. It's like I'm a true extension of their team. We are a team. It's a partnership, and there's nothing better than that. Like that is the pinnacle of freelancing, to have such a fulfilling relationship slash partnership with your clients where they trust you as the expert, they respect you, they consult you, you can get them results, you can see their business grow, you can really see kind of the fruits of your efforts play out. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
I 100% agree.
So with freelancing, it's like half the battle is mindset and overcoming yourself and imposter syndrome and believing that what you're doing is possible. And so I know when it comes to these really big milestones, you first have to believe, is this even possible? I know that was true for me going from 0 to 100K. So I'm curious, were there any like mindset shifts that you had to overcome once you crossed over into the 200K? Like anything that you were wrong about when it comes to the mindset stuff?
I think I don't think I was wrong from a mindset perspective, but I think it just takes a lot of reps to get to a point where you really start understanding the market on a deep level. Like once you've crossed 50 jobs done and 70 jobs done, and then eventually I was recently crossed my 100th project, and that's just on Upwork. I probably have done at least 1,000 client projects, probably even more than that at this point. You start to realize that certain amounts of money that you thought were very large when you started out are not actually that large. And then you start looking back when you were really early in your freelancing career and you start cringing because of the way you were pricing things and some of the rates that you were doing. I mean, I remember doing full day shoots for 500 bucks, maybe less, 350 bucks when I was starting out. So you just have to get in the reps. Obviously, you have to have a portfolio that backs up your price, but over time you start to understand that, $5,000 for a large company is not a lot of money. And so, depending on the client, obviously, you start to get a feel for what these companies can afford and not afford, and that goes right into how you price projects. Um, I'm moving away slowly from like set fixed rates. Obviously, I think you should have a minimum rate for everything that you do, but just because you have a minimum rate doesn't mean your pricing can't change depending on who you're interacting with. If you're interacting with a Fortune 500 company, your pricing should not be the same for that client that as it was for the mom and pop shop that you worked with. So I think it's just a matter of getting in the reps, getting around higher level clients, and then over time getting a feel for the market and the market rates. And there's no one formula. It really does shift. And a lot of it comes from just intuition and getting a feel for these things. So that's something that I'm getting better at over time. I still think I'm undercharging for a lot of stuff. I have a lot of maybe some of the old habits that I had when I started out, saying yes to maybe too many things, saying yes to projects that I don't actually need because the total project price is so small that it's not worth my time. I still have a little bit of that, but I'm getting better at really being super deliberate with the projects that I take on. And I think over time, as I've built up an actual savings, it's been kind of recent for me to have a solid, actual, substantial savings. As a freelancer, for the first 5 years, it was really like breaking even. I would buy equipment, I would, get some money, buy some more equipment. And so I was really, I was making money, but I was never really saving money. And so now that I'm actually saving money and not buying a new piece of equipment every other week, uh, it just increases the amount of leverage that I have when I'm in discussions with clients. And, we're always coming back to that word leverage. It always comes back to leverage. The more leverage you can have, and leverage comes in many different forms. The more leverage you have, the more money you can make, the more confidence you can bring to these client discussions, and the more firm you can be on your pricing, right? And I think there's a subset of clients that really appreciate a freelancer who is firm on their pricing, and you'd be shocked at how many clients actually become more sold on you the more firm you are on your pricing. So those are some of the things that from 100 to 200 that I've sort of gotten better at.
It's tricky though. It's really tricky because it's like you almost have to cross over to the threshold of higher value clients. I mean, I know for me in particular, starting out in my freelancing journey, I worked with a lot of startups, and I think I still carry some trauma from that because any price is too expensive because it's coming out of their bank account. And so doesn't matter the value, the service, if you're going above and beyond, anything is too expensive. And so that's something I've really, really had to work on and unlearn over the years. Because then once you cross the threshold into working with these well-paid, high-value client projects, that's the game. You actually want higher prices because it shows quality to them, and that's kind of that partnership that you want. They want to be able to pay for a premium freelancer to deliver premium results. So it's about protecting your mental too, and all the more reason to turn down those low value clients, those clients that have tons and tons of red flags, because it's going to impact your mental and your confidence in stating your price. That's really, really important, I think, for freelancers to truly understand.
Yeah, and this might be a crazy thing to say, but I guarantee you, most of you freelancers out there, especially if you're on the newer side, you have lost opportunities because you undercharged, because you underbid, because you came across like an amateur with your pricing. So, when I look back at some of the bids that I sent out, some of the opportunities that I fumbled, it was because I didn't charge enough. Because these marketing departments are used to certain levels of budgets and certain price points, and if you come in 80% below market rate, who's going to take a chance on that? That means you're an amateur. That means you have no idea what you're doing. So try to think about that. Is like, are you losing opportunities because you're not bidding enough? I'll bet you there's some opportunities that you've lost because of that.
And that weeds out those low value clients, which you don't even want to work with anyways. If they say no, great. That opens up your roster to work with those higher paying clients. So it's a good thing that you're turning down those low value clients.
Yeah, you should have a very healthy rejection rate. If your if your response to all of these inquiries is like a 90% acceptance, or something like that, your rejection rate should be above 60% or whatever. I'm just throwing a number out there, but you should have a decently high rejection rate, because just by the law of math and the law of the 80/20 rule, 80% of opportunities are not going to be the best for you. So, yeah, the higher your rejection rate, the healthier your business probably is. So, another thing to think about.
And it's not even rejection rate. It's like if you are good at filtering out clients, you don't even have to have those rejection conversations. I mean, the way that I've structured my like funnel in a sense is I only get on calls with clients that I'm 90% sure are a really strong fit. There's maybe some logistics that we need to chat through, but it's like I'm not even entertaining any touch points with clients that I know are not going to make it through to the other side of this funnel. So again, that also protects your mental, and it makes sure that you are utilizing your time, because time is leverage, and you're actually having those discovery calls with clients that actually want to work with you. So, do you have any interesting stories on clients you worked with or leads that you had conversations with from 100K to 200K?
I don't think I have anything too interesting. I think something that comes to mind is one of the clients that I had in the last 6 months. I think I had to ask them 5 times to write me a review. And this is a very happy client. So, just the idea of getting reviews is something that I'm always working on. It's never easy on Upwork. Doesn't matter how good of a job you do. You have to be a crazy person to get these people to write these reviews. And yeah, sometimes you really got to get after it. And I think I followed up with this person like literally 5 times over the course of like a couple weeks. But I ended in the end of the day, I got the review, and so that's all that matters.
It boggles my mind when freelancers don't have that mindset. I know I was talking with a freelancer, what was a couple months ago, and they were like, "Oh, I hate asking for the review. I like get a little shy. That seems a little pushy." And in my mind, I'm like, "You're not going to survive as a freelancer." And also, it's not pushy. It's not pushy whatsoever. If you deliver a 5-star service and you truly give them value, clients will happily write you a glowing paragraph long review. Like you've done your job. It's like you have front loaded that partnership with so much value. It's the least that they can do, write you a glowing 5-star review. And so for any freelancers out there that kind of have a little bit of that, where you might feel timid or shy on asking for a testimonial like that, that's going to be the success for you actually expanding your business and growing as a freelancer. It's mission critical.
Yeah, and I think the last point that I really want to hammer home again is I think if I were to pick one thing that helped me get to this point, it is my ability to not need Upwork projects. In our school group, we have an entire section devoted to helping people win work off of Upwork, win freelance. Because being a freelancer, you need to cast as wide of a net as possible. If you want to be successful as a freelancer, you never want all your eggs in one basket. And so I think my ability to succeed on Upwork has come from having enough leverage, having enough leads, having enough lead flow off of Upwork to where I can be extremely picky and really just take the best opportunities. And that's led to me getting to 200K with a 100% job success score. That job success score is everything to me. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to maintain a 100% job success score over 100 plus jobs now. So if I were to leave you guys with one thing, it is learn how to be a successful freelancer, learn the fundamentals of freelancing, and then use Upwork to augment your income and be patient and don't ever be desperate when you're on Upwork.
Well, congratulations on hitting 200K. That's such a big milestone worth celebrating. And it's such a good motivator for all of us that are striving to hit a similar milestone. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave a comment. And if you're interested in getting some support when it comes to Upwork, even just general freelancing, feel free to check out our school page. We will link it in our description. And we'll see you in the next one. Happy freelancing.